A cobalt swipe across the warped wedding portrait sends glass spiraling into the hallway. Shards clatter under the motion sensor, and the red LED flares like a warning that won't stop. The brush thuds against the floor, paint splattering into the crack between boards. Why is the light still accusing? The red LED keeps blinking, a quiet pulse against the polished banister where someone has set a stack of notebooks and a chipped mug of cold coffee. A few steps away, Mira smooths paint along the warped frame with the reverence of a ritual she's done 100 times, wiping the drip trail with her thumb before it runs. The sensor's hum mixes with murmured chatter from the living room, where Liam catalogs fragments in a tin lunchbox, tapping each sliver with the end of a screwdriver like he's scoring notes on a piano. Beyond the hall, sunlight slices through blinds in thin gold bars, dust motes floating in measured silence. A slow rhythm settles. Boots on hardwood, the soft scrape of a chair near the long table. The rustle of paper as survivors open their journals one by one. Grayscale sketches, cramped lists, careful fingerprints pressed into the page as though to steady the hand. The red light keeps accusing, but the people beneath it move with practiced calm, soft voices woven through the steady beat of the day. The room smells like rubber gloves and paint thinner. Mara drags a ragged canvas from the stack, thumbs around a yellowed corner, and drapes it over the easel. Cass switches a playlist from her phone to the speaker. Vocals crawl across the air, notes sticky with anger and hope. "We finished that wall tonight," she says, setting down a cooler of brushes. "No more dodging it." Mara snatches a wide brush, dips it into titanium white, and strokes across the canvas. The paint drips like frost. "Toxicity," she says, eyes on the wet line, "isn't something that disappears when I smile. They can be the anger that wakes me up." Cass steps forward, firmer. "Art and writing and the songs you keep on repeat aren't hobbies," she states, elbows wide. "They're the way you pry open a lid. Whatever feels heavy, throw it on the canvas." Suddenly, someone bangs on the door. It's Jordan from finance, clipboard in hand. "The community center director wants a list of what's being painted," he says, breathless. "They're worried art might offend donors." Mara wipes her hand on her jeans, leans toward Jordan. "These walls carry our voices," she says. "If donors don't like it, they can sit in silence." Jordan hesitates, then nods, rolling the clipboard. "You're knee-deep," he says, half smiling. "But the board asked for specifics." Cass grabs a wet brush, dips it into cobalt, and flicks a streak that lands on Jordan's clipboard, splattering the margin. "Specifics," she replies, "are the truth of these strokes, not the silence they hoped for." Mara steps in and signs her name in the corner of the canvas, 3 letters braced by the red line. "I'm here," she lays down, "not just for the show, but for the way I can scream." Violetta inspects the mural, then grins. "Mic's open," she announces, and someone laughs, letting the tension loosen a fraction. The brushes keep moving, and the paint keeps falling where it wants to, refusing to be calm. The basement still smells faintly of coffee and wet paint when Mara waves the spill-free tray over to the folding table. She pulls 2 canvases closer, palms dusted with cobalt. "We're working this into the showcase," she says, sliding a 3rd chair into the circle. "This is where the outrage becomes something we can touch." Izzy stands, shoulders tight, a notebook pressed between her ribs. "I kept writing on the backs of receipts," she says, voice low. "But tonight I'm saying it. When I swallow my word, the other person's voice grows louder until I can't think." She tosses the notebook onto the floor. It lands near the paint-splattered drop cloth with a dull thud. Silence isn't protection. It was a contract. A murmur. Then AJ crosses his arms, leaning on a crate of old flyers. I used to applaud when someone else spoke, thinking it made me useful. But it was applause to cover the fact I never asked for what I wanted. He unclips a wire binder from his belt and lets it fall open, revealing a storyboard pinned with Polaroids of him at the mural wall last week, splashes of orange crashing into navy. We created this outlet to hold the noise. Let's keep it open. The tension rises like a flicker of a faulty fluorescent bulb. Lina, the newest survivor, stands at the door, fingers tracing the frame. "You named the toxicity," she says, eyes darting between Mara and Izzy, "but my silence helped keep it in me." She steps across the threshold, the door complaining as she pushes it closed. "I was taught to hide the hurt." She exhales sharply. "I'm here to give it sound." Mara pulls the third canvas closer, and with a measured swipe drags black paint across a bare strip. "We aren't keeping this private out of shame," she says, breathing harder with each stroke. "We keep it here because it's where the rupture can heal." Suddenly, Marina grabs a marker, pressing it into Lina's hand. "Write it down, right now." Lina's fingers tremble, but she writes, "I was told to disappear." Ink pools at the letter's edges. She slams the marker down as if pinning the statement into place. The room hums, breathing in unison. The moment swells, then quiets into something like relief. Lina lets out a short laugh, jagged but clean. That weight, gone for a second. AJ steps forward, places a sheet of translucent paper over the shared canvas, then sets the stylus on it. "We'll overlay our words. No edits, no retreat." He holds the stylus up, and the others place their hands over it, one after another. The tool glows faintly, a harmless technicality that will project their confessions during the showcase. "This is the safe container," he says, "and we decide it stays that way." Izzy pulls the notebook back, flipping to a clean page. "Tomorrow," she says, "we read these entries into the mic. We don't hide the sound of our breath anymore." Small nods ripple through the group. Mara dips her brush again, laying a line of bright red along the edge of the canvas. "We commit to this space, to the art as witness," she says, "not as armor, but as a container that flexes with truth." They lean in, hands smudged, voices low yet steady. Lina's jaw eases. Izzy swipes tears onto her sleeve while drawing her forehead toward her notebook. The air vibrates with defiant energy, every confession landing like a new stroke. The room now holds a new fact. Silence can no longer be mistaken for peace. As the glowing stylus buzzes to life, AJ presses record on a small device. "We're doing this," he says. "Right here, right now." The tape whispers awake, capturing the scrape of paint, the thump of hearts, and a new, uncertain freedom. They will speak, and their voices will matter. The light over the studio shifts from gray to gold while the survivors work. But Lina doesn't look up. Her hand keeps moving across the canvas, pushing blue into the white, dragging a scrap of yellow that smells like old thinner. Each stroke is quick, not pretty. She bristles at the hesitation that wants to creep in, keeps her wrist flicking until the line stubbornly becomes a figure with arms reaching, not pleading, but searching. "Don't stop," Mara says from behind, leaning over the easel with a steadying hand on Lina's shoulder. "Even if it shakes you." Lina grunts, sets the brush down, and grabs a pen. Her journal sits open on the table, the first page already scribbled. She flips it, not rereading last night. Just takes a breath and writes again. "I am not just the silence you expect me to keep," she says aloud as the words pour out, taut and fast. The others fall quiet listening to her voice crack and then steady. A damp smear from her palm lands on the page, dragging the ink sideways. She wipes it with a sleeve without flinching. A beat passes. "We overlay it," Mara says, walking to the shared canvas and pushing the glowing stylus toward Lina. "Let the truth glow." Lina touches the stylus, then the exposed truth on the canvas. She traces around the word silence, already there, adding a smaller word over it. Choice. The stylus hums faintly as she drags that light across the paint, giving her words an almost physical weight. The glow pulses when she lifts her hand, so she keeps her fingers grazing the surface until the pulse steadies. "Not a confessional," Theo murmurs, leaning on a paint-splattered stool. "It's a declaration." The air hums as the projector, their open mic rig, catches the room. Lina presses the microphone close to her lips and breathes in. A trembling note escapes, then grows into a low, rough melody, the kind that feels like an out-breath after holding one too long. She keeps singing, pushing through the dryness in her throat, the way the notes want to break up. The studio shudders with the sound, not big, just raw, but enough that Theo nods and keeps recording. Halfway through, the brush in her other hand slips, smearing a streak of red across the canvas. Lina freezes, breath snagging as if she can reverse the smear. Mara steps in. Quick, she grabs a clean brush, dips it, and with a single decisive stroke turns the smear into a horizon line. She hands the brush back without comment. Lina exhales hard and keeps painting. By the time she finishes, the canvas is a riot. Layered strokes, journaling ink splayed across corners, a glowing declaration that silence is not a prison, but a now-choosing line. She leans back, shoulders shaking from the effort, but this time her chest rises steady. The microphone records the final note dissolving into air, the glow from the stylus pulsing gently under her palm. "First project?" Mara asks, softer now. Lina looks at her hands, paint on one, ink-stained fingers on the other, and nods. "First out of silence," she whispers, not asking permission. There's no hush after that, no waiting for consent. The group shifts to adjust the light, the shared space now buzzing with the evidence of what Lina just did. The projector captures the layered canvas. The open mic file saves the singing. When she steps away, the spotlight catches the glow on the words she overlaid, bright enough to make the rest of the room quiet in a new way. No longer because they were told to stay quiet, but because Lina is still speaking. Mara slides a fresh canvas across the table, the glowing stylus humming as she drags it from her pocket. Lina kneels beside the easel, her journal open to a new page where stillness morphs into a river of cursive. Tabitha sets her tablet on the tripod, then taps play. Dr. Reyes's voice fills the room, crisp over the speakers. "Art-making reorganizes the circuitry trauma tightens," he says. And the group leans in as graphs bloom on the screen, flickers of light showing neural pathways once stuck in loops now branching out. Those rewrites happen because you move through the story with your hands and your voice, not just inside your head. Sunlight slants through high windows, dust motes sparkling against the metallic gasp of dome lights. Mara moves between canvases, calling out, double-stacked phrases on the right border. Don't stop until you feel the edge. Lina, headphones loose around her neck, presses the glowing stylus into the canvas thick with layered white words. She leans in, tracing a new curve. "No more ghosts in my throat." And Mara nods, dipping a clean brush into cobalt and sweeping it along the same line. Tabitha stands beside them, clipboard balanced on her hip, flipping through their shared schedule while muttering, "Accountability check, circle up. Did everyone mark when they'll speak at the showcase?" The others respond with quick claps or thumbs up, the agreement pulsing through their gestures. The shared art space hums with brushes scraping, vocal prompts, and soft laughter that keeps the air charged, companionable, relentless. "You've got to hear how this boundary wants to sound," Lina says into the open mic, letting her words hang over the splattered floor. She taps the mic, then sings the boundary aloud, a thread of melody weaving around "no entry without consent," the syllables landing on the damp canvas. Mara steps in, her voice rising with assured cadence. Selfhood isn't polite. It's a barricade, a welcome mat, a warning light. Tabitha responds by sketching a door across the edge, her brush following the words, "I choose who crosses," and repeated strokes make the door pulse. They layer markings together, clasping hands drawn from different angles, names of trusted peers, colors pulsing from warm to cool across the border. Each action speaks. We keep each other honest. We keep each other company. Then the hallway door bangs open. A city inspector with folded papers steps in, his crease-lined brow locked in disapproval. "Noise ordinance," he barks, glancing at the open mic. "Events can't run without approval. You're on borrowed time." The group's breaths snag. Mara doesn't back down. She advances with a brush still wet with vermilion. "We're not shutting down," she says, voice steady. "We already coded every word, every sound, into this space. This work holds us accountable. That's non-negotiable." Tabitha slides between him and the mic, handing him a sheet filled with signatures and notes about the shared community purpose. "We hold each other to our art. There's no outside silence pulling us back," she says. The inspector hesitates, tension in his jaw, flickering doubt. He unfolds the papers, the corners curling, and Mara gestures toward the canvas where Lina has painted, "I map the territory of myself," over and over in shifting colors. "This," Mara says, "is our answer. The noise is us shouting truth." He leaves with a reluctant huff, but no visit to the microphone switch. The air snaps back into rhythm. Lina exhales, brushing paint from her knuckles. She steps to the mic again, lowering her voice into a hush that still carries. "We show up," she whispers. "We promise to check in, to keep telling the story." Tabitha echoes from the canvas, painting a thin line that turns into the spine of an open book, pages fluttering outward with words like solidarity, limits, glow. Mara hammers the stylus into the center, the glowing tip pulsing blue as it maps a new streak across the boundary line they've traced for hours. The group circles briefly, hands touching shoulders and backs in quick, grounding pats. Reward surface. Mara's paint-splattered hand brushing Tabitha's cheek as she says, "We kept our conviction loud," and Lina responding with a grin that makes her shoulders relax. The shared canvas now reads, "I define where I stand. I call my people near. I refuse to fold for anyone beyond us." The space pulses with new specificity. Each stroke narrates the edges of their emerging selves. The open mic continues, phrases turning into a chant of their own making, the art holding the truth that they will not be isolated again, that the community's companionship is their guiding map. Lina sweeps dust from the studio floor, her mop dragging across the concrete in long, rhythmic strokes echoing the alley's breath. She sets down her brush, grabs the small cassette recorder from the shelf, and clicks it on. The tape clicks into motion as she slides a list down into the binder labeled Daily Colors. Tabitha is already in the corner, unspooling a strand of fairy lights to outline the couch, adjusting the tripod so it catches the glow of the shared canvas without casting shadows on Mara's half. "Ready for another round?" Tabitha asks, handing Lina a stack of index cards clipped with yesterday's recordings. Lina nods, tucking her hair behind her ear and tracing the cards with a fingertip. Each card holds a single sentence. Painted a horizon with both hands, or sang into the sink. They flip through them, fresh ink drying from last night's session, before placing them under the camera as reference. Mara flares at the doorway, clutching a tray of paint jars like a lifeline. She drops the tray onto the work table with a clack that makes the lights sway. "The blue needs to hit the upper corners," she announces, then grabs a sponge. She doesn't ask. She thrusts herself in, pressing the sponge to the canvas and dragging it in a steady sweep, stopping just short of the communal line. "Hope is a sharp edge," she murmurs, her fingertips trembling enough to leave a trail of color. But the next beat has to feel like landing. Tabitha turns on the handheld camera and announces, "Day 7. Low light, high clarity." Lina steps forward, kneeling to adjust the microphone, and the camera catches the shine of sweat on Mara's forehead as she returns to adding lettering behind Tabitha's shoulder. Tabitha raises her voice to the lens. "Today, we each share the small ritual that keeps us from closing the door." Lina grips the stylus, her thumb brushing the glowing tip. Without slowing, she pulls it across her own notebook, outlining the first entry on the page. 11:12 a.m. Whispered last night's journal into the mirror, then painted a line across my throat to mark where silence couldn't go. She pauses, breath catching as the camera unwinds the moment in real time. She presses the stylus against the notebook again, this time writing, "Hope wears sneakers," and then stands to address the lens. "Every morning," she says, "I stack the paints in the order I felt them release overnight. It's how I tell myself the story didn't end at abuse." Her voice cracks as Mara brushes a sweeping arc across the canvas. The whitening edge turns into a set of wings. The camera lingers on the arc as neon ink fills it. Suddenly, the tripod shudders. The battery warning flashes red. "No," Tabitha hisses, lunging for the charger. The camera whirs, breathing faster. Mara's hands freeze over the canvas, and the room thickens for a second. Tabitha hits the tripod, and the warning flickers off as the auxiliary battery kicks in. "Keep going," Mara says, her voice low. Her fingers find the stylus, pressing bright words onto the canvas above the arch. Each stroke is deliberate, not rushing, not retreating. The camera catches the motion, the lights, the beads of sweat. Proof that the practice is happening right now. When the recording ends, they wipe their hands, and Lina pins the new plaque to the hope grid above the shared table. 3 index cards labeled Monday, breath drawn in color; Tuesday, sound carved; Wednesday, waiting room safe. Underneath, a fresh card says, "Today, battery almost won, but art kept the line." Tabitha places a sticky note beside the grid. Documented day by day. Mara leans back, exhales, then says, "Tomorrow, I'll paint the place where I wanted to run." The cameras keep rolling. This is what the saga looks like. Action, recording, release, every single morning. They step back, letting the studio hum with recorders clicking off, lights tracing the canvas edges, cards stacked like a small library of hope. The tape ends, but the story keeps moving forward.